Welcome to Limb Driven TV, and today we're going to be discussing FOC and how it can play a role in how well our broadheads are flying. So pay attention, I think a lot of guys could learn from this video. So to start, we're going to be just simply discussing FOC in general. It's forward of center, front of center, whatever people want to call it. And what it is happens when we add more weight up front, and it's going to move our arrow's balance point more towards the field tip, or in my case, my broadhead. And the important thing to note about that balance point is that it's the fulcrums. Now, how this pertains to archery is from this point back is called our rear lever arm. From this point forward is our forward lever arm. So we're going to get more discussing in depth, but those are the things you're going to have to know. Balance point, FOC moves it more towards the field point, rear lever arm, forward lever arm. So remember those things, and now let's discuss some things. The first thing that you should know about front of center, or forward of center, again, whichever you want to call it, is that it aids in structural integrity. So think of my balance point here. Again, that's roughly where it's at. We have our rear lever arm and we have our forward lever arm. The shorter that this forward lever arm is, the stronger it is. So think of it this way. I can barely flex it, right? From here's the balance point to here, I can't flex it. But if my balance point was back here, well, look at that, I can flex it. So it's longer, so it's more flexible. Shorter, less flexible. Less flex, now we have a lower chance of having it deflect and snapping off the front of our arrow. And that's the whole concept behind being able to breach bone, is to not have the arrow skip and flex and redirect. We want to just punch right through. And by increasing FOC, we allow it to punch right through without it flexing up front and wasting our arrow's energy. So when you think of FOC, it's not just penetration though, it's also going to be flight, and that's the second thing. The second thing to note about front of center is its ability to help and aid in arrow flight. So again, the balance point. Now, this entire section of my arrow is my rear lever arm, and that's giving more leverage to my fletchings, okay? So think of it back here, less space to flex, less leverage. If it's up here, or remember, balance point, more flex, more leverage. So I do have an example to show you guys, and this should be able to help you visualize what I'm talking about. So here I have a broom, and I'm going to back up, and I want to show you this. So if I grip close, and so imagine this is a shorter rear lever arm, I can move this no problem, very quickly, not much resistance on this section of the broom. However, when I back up, and hopefully you guys can see the whole broom, when I back up, it is much harder to make this thing move. I can feel not only the weight on the front, but also the resistance of these broom bristles. So again, it moves nice and quickly, and then it's just a whole lot more. It's more work to be able to move this, and that's the concept behind those fletchings. With a longer rear lever arm, these feathers have more resistance on them, so when the arrow flexes and it comes out of your bow, it has more resistance, so it's able to allow the arrow to straighten out faster and thus have a quicker recovery. And this plays directly into part 3 about FOC and why it's important, especially to broadhead flight. So again, the last part of this is going to be broadhead flight, and this is something that online you just see so much about. They're just massive debates. You'll see threads that have 800 replies on them, and it's crap, if I'm being honest with you. If you tune correctly, every single broadhead is going to fly just fine. It's going to shoot as accurate as you can shoot, and that's just the truth, okay? Now, that's not to say that certain styles of broadheads might need just a little more help along the way, okay? You can get away with a tiny little 1-inch head like tooth of the arrow, and you won't need much fletchings. There's not really much there, not really much resistance. So of course it's accurate. And something that a lot of guys are afraid of is heads like this that are unvented, or like the double XL by Grizzly Stick, that 200 grain that, remember I did a video on, it's huge, 1 7/8 cut. They worry about that because, oh, it's gonna plane. But here's the kicker, and there's ways to prevent it, and one of those things is FOC. So here's another visual. Think of it this way. So imagine this is my my forward lever arm is this long. That's the amount that the front end can flex, okay? Remember how I can't flex it? I'm not allowing my point to get off center. And by off center, I mean where I'm aiming, that's center. So I'd be aiming right at you, and if it flexes here, it's off center.
Now when it flexes, it gets resistance on one side, and that's what makes it veer off. And it might, you know, it could be in any direction. It could even be up and down. You might see some rise, some dump. And that's because there's just too much flex. It's not recovering. Your arrow is flexing all over the place. You're flexing up front on your forward lever arm, and it's catching wind and air, and it's just diving. Well, we decrease the distance between that balance point and our broadhead, that forward lever arm. We allow the back end to flex freely and give the fletchings a reason to even be there. Lots of resistance on them, and that corrects it all. Because now, again, imagine it back here, it's flexing. Move it up here, it's not flexing. And then, not to mention, as I said before on number 2, we recover so fast with a high FOC arrow, and it gets exponentially better and better and better as we go from above 19% to that 25 and then 30 and so on. We start recovering faster. You know, the arrow's flexing, the feathers are going to correct it all, and that's going to allow this broadhead to stay right on track. So that should be a quick rundown of FOC for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You should have learned something, and if you didn't learn something, if you think I'm lying, go ahead and leave a comment. I'd love to discuss it with you, or light me up. Doesn't bug me, go ahead. If you guys have videos that you want done, a little demonstration, something to help you guys understand a little bit better, please reach out. Go to Limb Driven TV on Facebook, send me a message, and I'm sure that we can work something out. I love doing videos for people that are curious. All up to you guys. You tell me what you want to see, and I appreciate every single view. Thank you guys for watching.